What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Travis and I produce daily content for homeowners and new and up-and-coming heating and air technicians, teaching you everything you need to know about heating and air. And on today's service call, we go to a customer who has an extremely loud noise problem coming from her outside gas pack, and she says it just will not cool the house. So if you want to see how I diagnose it, stay tuned and I'll be right back. Alright guys, I just spoke to the homeowner, and what she's saying is that the air conditioner is making a terrible noise outside and just won't cool. It's just blowing warm air out of the vents. First thing I did is I went to the thermostat. I saw that the thermostat did have power, so my display on the thermostat was there. I turned it over to cooling and basically checked my vents in the floor, and I was getting airflow coming out of my vents, so that basically tells me I have low voltage because my thermostat has a display, and I know our blower motor is good because I have air coming out of the vents. I don't think that's the problem with this system at all, but now that we know that, we need to go around to the outside unit. This is a gas package system, and see what's going on with that noise. So I'll meet you over at the gas pack. Alright, we're going around here to the gas pack, and as we can see, our condenser fan motor is not turning on. Try to get a stick, turn it on, and when we take and boost the fan motor, the fan actually comes on. With this happening, this is probably more of a capacitor problem. So let me get my meter. Let's check this capacitor for our condenser fan motor and see if that's the problem. Alright, what we want to do first is to check our capacitor. We want to turn power off to our gas pack. Now in this unit, your dual capacitor for the condenser fan motor is behind this panel. So let's take this panel off. Okay, here's our dual capacitor for our condenser fan motor. The capacitor section will be this brown wire, and what we need to check with our meter is between our fan connection and our common to see if this capacitor has gone bad and not turning on our condenser fan motor. Okay, as we can see, this is, I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but this is a 35/5 UF capacitor. So on our fan connection, what we should be reading on our meter is 5 microfarads. Okay, I've got my meter set to microfarads. What we want to do is take one side of our meter, hook it to fan. One side we're going to hook it to common. If you can see where I've got it, and I'm basically reading 0 microfarads. So this capacitor has gone bad, and this is a typical thing. You have two capacitors in one. The compressor side of the capacitor is still good. The compressor is running fine, but it's the fan side of the capacitor has gone bad, and if that happens, basically you have to replace the whole entire capacitor. So let me go get a capacitor, let's pop it on, and let's see if that condenser motor starts up. Alright, so to remove this capacitor, all we have to do is you have one screw with a washer which holds the capacitor in place. We want to take that out, and I've got our new capacitor here, and what we want to do is just to take and replace our wire for wire. See, we've got one side that goes to our compressor, one side to common, one side to fan. And if you can see on this capacitor, you've got little words below each one of the terminals, and that tells you exactly where it goes. So we're going to take our fan wire, hook it to fan, our yellow wires hook it to HERM for our compressor, and then our red wires and hook it to C for common. Now when you replace a dual capacitor, you always want to change it out for the same size that you have. See, this is a 35 plus 5 UF capacitor, which means the 35 microfarad capacitor is for your compressor, your 5 microfarads for your condenser fan motor. So when you go to buy this, you want to buy a 35/5 microfarad capacitor, and you also want to match up the voltage. And you see this is a 440 volt capacitor, so you want to make sure you match that up as well. So when you go to a supply house, that's the information you need. Okay, we've got our new capacitor in. All we got to do is replace that screw and washer. Okay, everything's secure. So now what we want to do is we want to turn the power back on. And anytime you have a motor that's been trying to start like that and not starting, you want to make sure that the motor is not damaged in any way. So after we replace the capacitor and get everything up and going, what we want to do is check the amp draw of the motor to make sure it's not overamping, because if it's overamping and the motor's been damaged, the motor's going to have to be replaced as well. So always check that when you do a capacitor, because what you would hate to have happen is you replace a capacitor, tell the customer everything's working, and then a day later or a few hours later the customer call you back, say it's not working, and you end up telling them the motor's gone bad too. They may question, what you found. So always double check that amp draw of your motor just to make sure there's no damage. So let's pop the power back on and we'll check the amp draw. Where you want to find the amp draw of your condensing fan motor is right on the side of your motor itself. I don't know if you can see down in here, but the amp draw of this motor, the maximum amp draw is 1.5. So when we turn the power back on, when we check where you want to check it is your common terminal for your fan motor. The maximum amp draw you want to see on this motor is 1.5. If it's over that, that means the motor is actually damaged and it's going to have to be replaced. Okay, I've got my meter set to amps, and your common wire for your condenser fan motor is this purple wire here. And so we're waiting now for the unit to time out. It's got a delay to it. We're waiting for it to time out, turn the air conditioning back on, and then that way we can check our amp draw of the motor. Okay, the unit just kicked on, and we're reading 1 amp. So our maximum amp draw on this condensing fan motor is 1.5. We're only reading 1, so that tells us the condenser fan motor was not damaged by this bad capacitor and it trying to start. So our fan motor is good. The only problem with this system was just the bad dual capacitor. So let me clean everything up and I'll see you back in the truck. Okay, just to recap what we did, the customer said that the air conditioner was just making a horrible noise and wasn't blowing any cold air out of the vents. We went over here to check it out. This is a gas pack unit. First thing I noticed is that the condenser fan motor was not working, and the noise that she was probably hearing is if the air conditioner runs a long time without the condenser fan motor running, it'll end up making a loud screeching noise where it's actually going out on overload. But that's probably the real loud noise she was hearing. I took a little stick, and that's what you always do. If you see a fan motor is not turning, first thing, take a screwdriver, a stick, or anything like that, try to turn your fan blades. If your fan blades start, that usually is an indication that you got a bad capacitor for your condensing fan motor, and that way you can always tell if it's the motor itself. Is the motor stuck? Well, it won't turn. This is a quick way to know. What we ended up finding out, we tested this capacitor. The capacitor was reading nothing. and so we ended up replacing the capacitor. Once we did that, we checked our fan motor, the amp draw of it. The amp draw for the condenser fan motor was fine. It wasn't damaged in any way. Went ahead and checked the Freon, the temperature drop. I was getting a 18-degree temperature drop on this system, which means the air conditioner is cooling fine. So that was the only problem with it. So a pretty easy service call, and you can see on this one, and I've got other videos showing bad dual capacitors, just how much of a problem dual capacitors cause. I mean, it's one of the most common things to happen on AC systems. It can make your compressor not run, your fan motor not run, just create all sorts of problems. But a pretty easy service call at that. So guys, I appreciate you joining me. I appreciate you watching. Hope you learned something, and if you did, don't forget to smash that like and subscribe button. And as always, guys, I will see you on the next service call. Bye.